Thanks, Dr. Williams. We did receive some very sobering news from the governor's office yesterday. The cuts that the governor is proposing in his budget are worse than we were expecting. I'm going to take you through that now. To give you the overview, before the economy turned ugly, we were projecting a deficit for next year of $9 million. Included in that deficit was an increase in state aid that we were counting on up until recently of $36 million. That is the amount of foundation aid that was committed to this district back when the four-year educational investment plan was passed. So in that plan, we were allocated a $36 million increase in state aid. Despite that, we still had a deficit of $9 million. One of the reasons is that our health insurance costs are going up, as you know, at double-digit rates. That's $12 million we're projecting for next year. Our charter school payments we expect to go up by $9 million. We also received charter school payment aid called Transitional Aid because we have so many charter schools, but that aid is going to go down by $3 million despite the fact that our payments are going up by $9 million. Now that the wage freeze has been lifted, we have a one-step salary increase that we have to absorb each and every year, and next year that'll be about $6 million. Then we are also trying to absorb the balance of the three-step wage freeze costs. That is part of the litigation now with the control board and the unions. We are trying to be conservative here and digesting that cost in the event that the unions prevail and the district and the city have to pay those three steps. There's contract for excellence money that we can only use for expanded or new programs, $5 million. Then transportation, utilities, and a whole host of smaller items will be going up by about $4 million. So that $36 million in state aid was going to be more than spent by the cost increases that I just described to you, resulting in a projected deficit of $9 million, which we were going to have to come to terms with. But it got worse. It got worse in part because the governor has said there will be no increase in foundation aid next year. So that $36 million is gone. So if we revisit our $9 million deficit and we factor in that the $36 million cut in state aid for next year, we're up to the $45 million that when we last reviewed this, we said we had been advised by our informants in Albany that that would be the best we could hope for, is that only $36 million would be cut. The governor has proposed another one-time reduction of $15 million. He's referring to this as the deficit reduction assessment. And he says it is only for 1 year. It was based on a formula where a district could have a cut of anywhere from 3 to 13% of the aid that they would have otherwise received next year. We came in at 3.12%. We're at the low end of the range because of our demographics. The better your demographics, the wealthier your district, the higher your cut. So we in the governor's proposal will lose $15 million. That puts us at a deficit projection based on the governor's proposal of $60 million for next year. And I find that mind-boggling. Now, looking out further, we all hopefully know that this isn't a one-year economic crisis. It's just the beginning. And the governor, in recognition of that, is also proposing that there will be no increase in 2010 and 11. So The year after next year, there will be no increase. Hopefully there'll be no deficit reduction assessment. That certainly seems to be his intention, but time will tell depending on the economy. But we have no increase now to look forward to for 2 years. And here's the problem. We're going to have to, assuming we can cut our way through to balance the budget despite this $60 million deficit, we're going to need to make even more cuts the following year. And that's because our health insurance costs will continue to increase, our charter school payments will continue to increase, the salary step increments will continue as guaranteed by the Taylor Law and the Triborough Amendment, and our other costs of doing business will continue to increase. So it really is frightening to think that even if we can get through, survive 60 million of cuts to balance our budget next year, that we're going to be up against it in a big way the following year as well. Now, we do have some reserves, but we have to use our reserves responsibly. We first have to explore all the options that we have available to us to cut costs before we begin to look at reserves. There is no district in New York State that has enough reserves to weather this storm. As good as our reserves are, we cannot weather this storm relying on our reserves, nor should we, because we cannot afford to operate really what amounts to $1 billion corporation without some kind of safety net. And as I've said before, reserves are in essence savings accounts, and once you spend through your savings account, the only way you build it back up is by not spending your entire paycheck. In our case, our paycheck has just shrunk significantly, and we're going to struggle to figure out how we can get by on that paycheck as it is. So there will be nothing left over to go into reserves. So we have to be very careful how we use our reserves.